So everybody fine? Everybody okay? Remember, just before to start, just remember two things, okay? Because we're in a closed area, so we cannot take off our mask unless you are a Spider-Man. And you know that we cannot take a dinner or any food here, okay? Bueno, si es Animal Live, first to tell you that usually when we invite some speaker, we invite very special people. Very special because they are with us, they are part of our life every time. But we don't know about their job. For example, all of us, we watch movies. All of us, we read papers, we listen to podcasting. But how a journalist they work, how a filmmaker they work. So I think it's very, very good for us that we have this very great opportunity to listen people who are really professionals with this, and of course they are foreigners coming to Taiwan. So the most important also that we can learn today is not just only about how the filmmaking or the journalism it works. Also, how can we interact with other, we can say kind of people because a different background. Okay, we have different culture. So sometimes, if we have a teamwork, it's not the same codes that we need to use to interact with other people. Always with respectful, but it's not the same. So I think today we have very good samples, and we can take a lot of notes, a lot of knowledge from the speech today. So I hope everything today it will be fantastic. So first we will listen Mr. Klaus. Mr. Klaus comes from Germany, and he's a journalist. I don't want to introduce you very much because you will speak about your life, so it's much better that they speak about themselves, okay? And we will, sorry please, bye. Also we have today another very important speaker, Mr. Cédric. Sorry, my pronunciation is not good. He's filmmaker, he's director. He has a lot of short movies, short films in Taiwan with a lot of awards. And we will know also how it works this work. So, sitting in the okay, and I want also to say thanks to other teachers because you know this is part of the European program. So in the Y1C, the Department of Foreign Language, we have a program. What is the European Language Program? So today, this is this is the working develop. Sorry, because my English is even worse than my Chinese. Say organize. So the speakers of the European program organized this event. So thanks to Bruno, thanks to Manfred, and thanks to Oscar, and as you know, he's also teaching broadcasting. So it's really very good to have this kind of knowledge also because our two speakers, they are also professionals in broadcasting. Okay? So I think we will learn a lot. So sorry to tell you so long introduction, and it's much better that we listen to the speaker. So just a minute. So please. Yes, you can sit over there.
好，各位好，我是 Klaus Bardenhagen， 中文名字叫白德汉。我很高兴今天有这个机会帮你们介绍我在台湾当记者的工作，也介绍德国媒体眼中的台湾。Because we are a guest of the Foreign Languages Center today, I will still speak in English, which also makes it easier for me as well. Okay, so it's very unusual to stand here without a mask, but I was told it's okay. First, I want to tell you a little bit about myself, where I'm from, how I came to Taiwan, and what I'm doing here, and then about my work here. What is it? Which stories from Taiwan are I trying to tell to the audience, to the people in Germany? What are they interested in, and why are they maybe not interested in some other stories that we in Taiwan maybe find more important? And also, I want to talk a little bit about some cultural differences that I sometimes realize during my work, and maybe this is also something we can then talk about more in the discussion part later. So first of all, where am I from in Germany? I'm not from one of the big cities originally. I didn't grow up in Berlin or in Hamburg. I grew up in the place a little bit in the middle of nowhere in northern Germany, near Hamburg, only 90 minutes by car, and then you are in Hamburg, so right here. And it's a place with small towns. This is the little town where I went to high school, and in some places you even have more cows than people living there. So I think maybe for those of you who are studying German and want to go to Germany for studies abroad, you will probably end up in a big city or a university town, but it's good to be aware that most people in Germany actually live in small towns or in villages on the countryside still. The majority of people does not live in the big cities, on the university cities. So there's another side of life to Germany as well that maybe you can discover and tell to the people in Taiwan. A little bit like I'm trying to tell the people in Germany about what I experience in Taiwan, which is not always the same what they see in like tourism guidebooks or something. So how did I come from, how did I end up from there to here in Taiwan? Very briefly, at first I went to university and I did film studies for 5 years. So that was not so much making movies. We talked about movies a lot. We analyzed them and we watched them again and again, and then we say, why is this movie good, and this, what makes this movie special, and so on. But after that, I decided to go to the media, to enter the field of media, and I did that. I joined a public TV station in Germany, Tunghai, and in Hamburg, Northern German TV, and I went there. And I was a trainee with them for 1.5 years. And I worked for different radio and TV programs, and I learned how to make TV and radio reports from scratch, and how to interview people, edit it all together, and so on. And after that, I stayed on for about 4 years, and I was a freelance reporter for them, and I mainly worked for one show, giving consumer advice, like how to save money, or which insurance is good, and what do you need to look out for, people want to rip you off, be careful, and so on. And also for one of the major national news programs in Germany. And I think if you have lived in Germany, you probably know who these people are. If you don't, doesn't matter. One of them, the guy on the bottom left, he went on to become the spokesman for Angela Merkel during her chancellorship for many years, but I think he's also retired now. So, and then in 2008, I became aware of a scholarship program that Taiwan government was offering to foreign journalists, and so it was basically, if you're interested in Taiwan and you want to stay here for 3 months, just apply, and we will invite you. And I thought, well, I didn't know anything about Taiwan, but I was very curious, and 3 months, why not? And so I came here for 3 months in 2008, and it was so interesting, and I saw so many things I wanted to learn more about, that I decided to move here in 2009. And so since 2009, I've been living and working here as a reporter in Taiwan. And time moves really quickly, I can tell. So when I work for the German media, I have to think about, okay, I'm in Taiwan, they are in Germany, the audience in Germany, what are they interested in? What kind of story can I tell to them that is interesting enough for them so they devote their time and their money to me and to Taiwan? And if you think about how do media actually work? I think it's probably the same in every country. In Germany, it's like this. The media in Germany are mostly interested in Germany, of course, what's happening here at home, close to us. And after that, it's the rest of Europe. Spain, France, probably very similar, because it's also nearby, of course. They are our neighbors, and we are together in the EU. And the USA is also quite important, because what happens there is influences the rest of the world a lot. So after that, yeah, the rest of the world, yeah, it also features in the media, but not as much. Well, Asia, what do we have in Asia? Yeah, okay, people in Germany are quite interested in China, partly because of economic reasons, but also political. Political view of China has been changing in the last few years. I think we can talk about that a little later. After China, yeah, Japan is also quite important, and then yeah, there are some other countries, but they don't feature so much. And then, yeah, one of them is Taiwan. So, when I try to pitch a story from Taiwan, when I try to sell a story from Taiwan, I need to be aware of this. So the editor of the German TV station or newspaper that I contact, he's not sitting there desperately waiting for stories from Taiwan. He does not say, oh wow, great you called me, I wanted to have a story from Taiwan all the time, so what do you want to do? No, I have to convince him that this kind of story that I want to tell is the right one for him. So, let's take a step back and understand why this is, because maybe if you live in Taiwan, you would think it's a little bit unfair. I mean, I know there's so many interesting things happening here, I know why Taiwan is more important than the rest of the world thinks it is, but they don't. So why is that? So the reasons are, if you ask people in Germany, normal people who don't know a lot about Asia or Taiwan, they will tell you, well, Taiwan is far away. It's a small place, I think, yeah? It's probably not very important. And when you start to tell them, yeah, there was, first the indigenous Taiwanese were there, and then the Spanish came, but the Dutch drove them out, and then the Chinese came, but they were not the emperors from China, but the other Chinese, and then they established their own kingdom, but then the Chinese empire came, and then the Japanese came, but, so, yeah, they say, oh, that sounds really complicated, do I really need to know this? Well, I think what I need to try to make people aware is, yeah, Taiwan is really far away, that's true, I mean, we can't change that. Is it small? Well, I don't know. Taiwan has 23 million people, it's about as many as Australia, and if Taiwan were a member of the EU, by population, Taiwan would be the 6th largest country in the EU, which is not that bad. How many member states do we have? 22? Yeah. Well, is it important? Well, let's look at the economy. The GDP, even by economic standards, Taiwan would be the 6th largest economy in the EU. And in recent years, we've all become aware of how very critically important it is for semiconductors and for the delivery chains of the global IT industry. So, because of this, Taiwan has a central key role, I think, in the world economy. And then we have the geopolitical value, which is the position of Taiwan in relation to China and the rest of the Pacific, makes it very, very important to the US, for example. And this is something that Taiwan cannot change. It will always be in this position, in this spot on the map. So this will also always make Taiwan of critical importance. And what's complicated, yeah, but you can also say it's complex. So, and if it's complex, it's interesting, because if you understand it, then maybe you learn something that's helpful to you to understand more about why the world looks the way it does today. So this is what I'm trying to do. So now, in my experience, there are some stories from Taiwan that German media are more interested in than others. And first I want to mention the politics. And because I told you that Germany is rather interested in what's happening in China and how China is behaving in the world and to Germany and to European countries. People are also interested in Taiwan because very often you can make the connection between Taiwan and China. You know, what are Beijing's plans with Taiwan? What is the Chinese military doing? Why are they doing that? This has always been one angle that made people interested in Taiwan. But it does not have to always be connected with the People's Republic of China. It can also be something that's happening in Taiwan itself, a purely Taiwanese development. Like, how is Taiwan dealing with its past? You know, the 转型正义, the transitional justice, for example. That's maybe for Germans especially interesting because we also had our own experiences with subjects like this, how to deal with the former authoritarian regime. Do you punish the people who committed crimes, or can you punish them, should you punish them, for example, all this. And if you look at Taiwan and you compare it to Germany, that's quite interesting. And also Taiwan is a success story. I mean, how Taiwan transitioned from an authoritarian one-party state to one of the most open democracies in Asia. This is a very interesting and important story, I think. The Economist just had one ranking where they said Taiwan is the most open democracy in Asia and the number 8 in the world, I think. Reporters Without Borders just published the press freedom ranking, and Taiwan also moved up a few spots there. And yeah, this is something people in Taiwan can be proud of, and they should also be aware that this is something this experience is something they have to offer to the rest of the world and can share with the rest of the world. And then we have social developments like the reforms of marriage equality, for example. But then there's also the fact that Taiwan and some of the or many European countries are facing similar challenges. So first of all, of course, COVID is a challenge that every country had been facing. And now Taiwan is somehow catching up with the rest of the world, not in the best way right now, but for a long time Taiwan did so excellent that only now are people really starting to have a lot of cases here. And in 2020 and in 2021, when COVID was the #1 subject in Germany before Ukraine war happened. You had COVID news every day, of course. And people were also interested in how is that happening in Taiwan? How are they doing this? How can they be so successful and not be too strict? How do they get the people on board for their COVID policies? And I want to show you one of the TV reports I did. And for this, I reported from my own quarantine hotel, Fangyi Luguan. I went there in January 2021, after I came back from Germany. And a lot of what you will see now, I filmed with my own cell phone. So at the airport, in the hotel, I used my own cell phone to film everything, because of course no cameraman could be there with me. And we only watch a minute or so, but I think maybe you will have the PowerPoint and the links later. You can look again if you want to.
Wenig Infizierte, kaum Tote und ein Alltag ohne Einschränkungen. Taiwan wehrte sich von Anfang an erfolgreich gegen die Corona-Pandemie. Darüber haben wir bereits im Frühjahr berichtet. Was macht Taiwan richtig und wie sieht es heute dort aus?
Anfang Januar am internationalen Flughafen Taipei. Gerade ist ein Flugzeug gelandet. An Bord viele Rückkehrer aus Europa. Doch einfach in die Stadt und nach Hause dürfen sie nicht. Stattdessen Seuchenschutz, strenge Kontrollen, Fieber messen, alles desinfizieren, persönliche Daten und Handynummern werden registriert. Und dann geht es für alle Ankommenden direkt in speziellen Taxis in Quarantäne. Auch der deutsche Klaus Bardenhagen, der seit über 10 Jahren in Taiwan lebt, muss vom Flughafen in ein spezielles Quarantänehotel. Zahlen muss er das selber. 100 Euro die Nacht für kaum 10 Quadratmeter, die er die nächsten 14 Tage nicht verlassen darf.
Zweimal am Tag wird von mir erwartet, dass ich meine Temperatur messe, um zu schauen, ob vielleicht ein Fieber mit einer automatisierten Nachricht. Wie fühlen Sie sich?
Wenn auch jemand sein Zimmer verlassen hat, sei es nur für Sekunden, drohen tausende Euro Strafe.
Es gibt hier kaum Fälle, weil man es so ernst nimmt.
Well, and so on. So I think you get the feeling. So it was quite nice because I could do my first-hand experience, in my own hotel room. I couldn't do a lot more. I couldn't go outside, but I could do a TV report at least. Where were we? Okay, and also Taiwan is facing some subjects like how do we transition our energy policy, how do we deal with climate change, become a more climate neutral economy, how do we deal with the aging society, and more old people, less and less kids. This is all something the German audiences are quite familiar with, and they are interested to know how do other countries deal with this. Then, yeah, one thing German people are interested in is other German people, surprisingly, especially if they live somewhere else and they left Germany and they moved abroad and they live somewhere else. So from time to time I can film a portrait. Here we have one student, exchange high school student I met in his class, and from time to time I can also film reports where I meet German people in Taiwan and I show their daily life and their work and they tell me about what it's like. And just today before I came here I met with a couple gentleman here in Taiwan. Maybe I will do my next film about him, but I cannot tell you too much right now because maybe it doesn't. Let's see. And I'm going to show you a little clip from one of the reports where I meet a German girl. She's only 23 something. She lives in Miaoli and she married a Taiwanese husband and they live with the parents of the husband and they are baking cakes, German cakes, and selling them together. So let's have a brief look at it.
Sally Burgmann ist in Taiwan angekommen. Hier verdient sie mit selbstgebackenen Kuchen ihr Geld. Hier hat sie eine neue Sprache und eine andere Kultur kennengelernt. Und sie hat ihre große Liebe gefunden und damit auch eine neue Familie. Mit gerade mal 24 lebt sie am anderen Ende der Welt.
Das kann man mit kaum was vergleichen. Das muss man selber mal erlebt haben.
Ob Orangentart, Bienenstich oder Baumkuchen. Sally backt alles nach deutschen Rezepten. Hilfe bekommt sie von ihrem taiwanesischen Ehemann Patrick.
So you're going to be responsible for preparing the Eischnee.
Okay, let's get forward to
Seinen
the
Job in der
parents.
Computerbranche hat Patrick aufgegeben. Jetzt arbeitet und verdankt Sally ihren Schwiegereltern. Eines Tages hatten sie einfach mal Lust auf einen Marmorkuchen nach deutschem Familienrezept.
Und da haben wir gesagt, weil wir zu dem Zeitpunkt auch noch auf der Jobsuche waren, die sind so happy, wie die unseren Kuchen gefuttert haben, da kann man doch was draus machen.
Nicht nur der Kuchen hat überzeugt, sondern auch Sallys Bereitschaft, Chinesisch zu sprechen.
对伏特加，对伏特加不是农产，对伏特加。
Da kommt so eine Deutsche. Ich dachte, wie soll ich denn mit der reden? Ich wusste ja nicht, dass Sally so ein Sprachtalent hat und dass sie sich dem Leben in Taiwan so gut anpasst.
Ich bewundere die.
Okay, again, I think you get it. Sorry, there's no English or Chinese subtitles here, but I can only link the report as it is. So and then another kind of story, sadly, that's always good for attention is when disasters happen, when something bad happens. Spectacular natural disaster, earthquakes, buildings fall over in the earthquake, planes crash in the center of... Do you remember this, or is this already too long ago? No, it's still here. The train crash 2 years ago also, and when this kind of story happens, all of a sudden I get emails from like radio stations from Ireland or from Israel, and they tell me, hey, we just saw it happen in Taiwan, are you in Taiwan, can you give us a live interview? And I say, well, yeah, I'm in Taipei and the building fell down in Tainan, it's on the other end of the yeah, it doesn't matter, you know more than us. And sometimes I say, no, I don't actually, I really don't know what I can add to this. And I think, I don't like this kind of reporting so much because they are not really interested in learning more about Taiwan or what happened here or why did it happen. They are only interested in the spectacular images and how many people died. Is it 95 people or is it already 96 people? And so this is actually not the kind of story that I became a journalist to cover. But I can understand that for a day or two there's a big interest and then it's forgotten, something else happens somewhere else in the world. And then you have the, I call it weird stuff happening in Taiwan. Like, I'm sorry, like the politicians fighting in the parliament. This is not politics, this is entertainment, and that's how the rest of the world sees it. But also stuff like, what do we have? You remember after the typhoon, the 2 mailboxes became like this, and it was some kind of media phenomenon and so on. So these cute, little, weird, strange stories, international media also like to pick up because they're easy to understand, right? You don't need to really know a lot about Taiwan to understand that it's strange when politicians are fighting or that people are taking photos of mailboxes. So, yeah, also not the kind of stories that I want to focus too much on. So for me, the first 3 points in this list are more important than the other 2. But let's talking about disasters and all that again. You know, the saying is bad news is good news. And this is especially true if you work in the media, because if you decide which is the story I put at the top or at the beginning of my news show on TV, then you often take the one that's like the worst. Something really, really bad happened. And this is a very good example of what a newspaper would look like. So the more dead people, the bigger the news. So 4028, it just says, oh, bad, bad, bad.
Total means dead. Total means dead.
Yeah, total means dead people. Yeah. Casualties. At 215, it says, yeah, it could have been worse. 52, yeah, it can happen. And 2 dead people. So this is, sadly, the way that media are working. And this is also how the internet works. I mean, which headline would you be most likely to click on if it was shared on Facebook? Just be honest to yourself. So, because of this, the fact is that when the war in Ukraine started, it greatly increased the interest in Taiwan and Germany. Because first of all, it's connected to China, and it's connected to the possibility of war, and war is a very, very bad and therefore big kind of news. And so all kinds of media are now asking, yeah, will Taiwan be next? Are people in Taiwan afraid? Are they panicking? How are they preparing? What can you tell us about the situation? And this is, of course, also a good opportunity to tell more background about Taiwan. Because if you want to really answer these questions, then you need to help people to really understand a little bit more about what's going on, and not just the superficial headlines. So just a few days after the war broke out, my TV station sent me to Matsu because I told them, hey, listen, if you want me to report from Taiwan, you want me to show something. When you do TV, you always need to show things happening. You cannot only talk to people and you say, okay, this is a street, everything is normal, people go shopping, people go to restaurants. No, the TV always wants to be somewhere where something is happening. And so I told them, yeah, I'm sorry, in Taipei, you cannot see anything happening, nothing has really changed. We had one demonstration of Ukrainian people in Taipei. I went to that, I talked to the people there, Ukrainians and Taiwanese together, protesting. But apart from that, nothing happened. And so I said, if you want to show something that's really connected to this, then we need to go to one of the islands, to Jinmen or to Matsu. And then it worked out that I and an Austrian cameraman, in this case, that we went to Matsu, and we filmed this report here.
Nur 20 Kilometer sind sie von der Volksrepublik China entfernt. Dennoch gehören die Matsu-Inseln zu Taiwan. Auf dem Markt erfährt der Kunde Li Wen, was die Marktfrauen beschäftigt. Zuhören gehört bei ihm zur Jobbeschreibung. Der Lokalpolitiker von Taiwans Regierungspartei bemerkt, die Nachrichten aus der Ukraine haben sich auch hier herumgesprochen.
Europe might seem far away.
Europa mag sehr weit weg erscheinen, was da die Matsu-Inseln bis an die Zähne bewaffnet. Wenn Peking heute den Angriff wagen würde, wären die Inseln wohl nicht zu verteidigen. Viele der alten Militäranlagen sind nur noch Fotomotive für Touristen. Der Konflikt aber ist geblieben.
The two sides are not active.
Die beiden Seiten sind nicht in einen aktiven Kampf verwickelt, aber wir spüren hier eine Menge nicht militärischen Druck.
And so he just said, so he's a local politician from Matsu. He just started the EPP local chapter in Matsu, and he told me, yeah, there's no active kind of conflict happening here, but a lot is happening like under the surface. So these Chinese ships you see back there, they are taking away our sand from the bottom of the sea, and the fishermen are being harassed, and he told us a little bit about this. So I hope that this made a few people more aware, and maybe they want to check out more. Maybe some of the people who watched this went on and Googled where's Matsu or something like this, and then they will maybe become more interested in Taiwan and Taiwan's situation. Okay, so sometimes when I do reports like this, I do street interviews, when you just talk to random people on the street. And so I have made some experiences there. So sometimes when I have a camera myself, or the cameraman is next to me and the microphone, and then I go to people on the street, sometimes they are a bit shocked or scared, and they don't want to say something, but quite often actually they do. And I think the question is not so much if it's a foreigner talking to them or not, at least not if you ask in Chinese. It's more like if they want to be on TV at all. If somebody does not want to be on TV and talk in front of the camera, he will say no, no matter if I'm a Taiwanese camera crew or if I'm there for German TV. And a lot of people in Taiwan actually are quite willing to share what they have to say. I think, from what I hear, people in other countries, also when, for example, when my colleagues from Japan, German TV studio in Japan, sometimes they come to Taiwan and I help them to report, they are often surprised. Wow, people in Taiwan are quite open here. So many people do not mind giving us sharing their view of things. So I also find out a few sentences which are helpful if you talk to them on the street. So if you say, yeah, do you want to help me make the people in Germany understand Taiwan better? Then I think it's also like something that they would like to do. I think they would see a point. Yeah, if I answer this guy now, maybe I do something, for Taiwan. And another thing is, yeah, sometimes people say, okay, I can speak English, but not so sure if my English is good enough. And you tell them, yeah, in Germany, everybody gets a voiceover anyway. German doesn't use subtitles, we use the voiceover. So people will not hear you in English anyway. There will be a German voice talking, don't worry. And if they still worry, then you can tell them, you can answer in Chinese too, it's no problem. And if they're still not sure, then you can tell them, also, it's not going to be shown in Taiwan. So don't worry, people in Taiwan will not see it on TV. It's only in German. And so then, these are some reasons to make people a bit more relaxed and maybe willing to talk to you. Should we make it really short now? Because I think we only have the half hour. Or is this?
Do you need 5 minutes?
Yeah, okay, 5 more minutes is fine. So I can give you one example of talking to random people on the street. Do you remember in 2015 this meeting happened? You were probably middle school students then. So anyway, this was big news in 2015, the Marshi meeting in Singapore. And so I went to the Bardenhagen in Taipei, and I just started asking a few people. And in this, I haven't edited it so much here, so you can also hear my questions in between, and you see how they react.
对，我觉得很正常。就是现在这个时间刚刚好，就觉得他们早晚会见面了，只是刚好是这个时候这样。
那你就他要下台，那现在还有办法做什么重要的角色吗？
他没有办法，可是国民党可能有办法，因为国民党他还是代表一部分的民意，然后他对国民党还是有点影响力。
很好啊。
为什么？
为什么啊？
太突然，太突然，为什么？就是事前完全不知道，大家都不知道，然后就突然说他要去，然后也不知道他要讲什么，对，就完全不知道他要去那边是要讲什么内容，和干嘛。因为他可能是比较偏向亲中那一派，所以不知道他会跟他达成什么样的私下的协议。
And so on and so on. Sorry, I can only give you a brief impression now, because we didn't have that much time. So, maybe just briefly now, and we can talk about it later when you ask questions. What I'm personally interested in, and what I would like to make people understand through my reporting, is the similarities and the differences on a cultural and human level. So how do people think? How do people behave in daily life? What is important to them in daily life, and why? And why do people in Germany and in Taiwan maybe have other priorities? So, for example, there's this one cliche about German people, but like many cliches, there's some truth to it, but it wouldn't have become a cliche. This is people in Germany want to do everything perfectly and very exactly. And so, you know, this is how Germans like to see themselves, actually. It's not really like this. I mean, if you check out how long we needed to finish the airport in Berlin, this is not true. But it's still how people would identify themselves. And then when I see this in Taiwan, for example, then I think, okay, this is quite interesting. You see what's happened here, right? They have a bike lane. It's great. I mean, obviously they care for the people riding a bike in Taipei. So yeah, they also really care for the people who want to ride the bus. Did nobody notice that this might not be so ideal? Because in Germany, I'm sure if this had happened like the next day, they would have torn it down and changed it, and somebody would have been fired. What? Now, the thing is, first of all, it still works, right? I mean, you can just ride your bike around it. You don't need to drive against it. Nobody forces you to crash into the bus stop. And also, actually, a few months later, this was changed. So somebody noticed and somebody changed it. It's not like this anymore. And then I started to think, yeah, well, on the other side, what Taiwanese people in general, right? I'm generalizing here, it's not every person. But what they're really good at is being flexible and reacting quickly to circumstances that change. And this is something that German people are not good at, because we want to follow the rules and be rigid. So, for example, when last year the first COVID wave hit, and then all of a sudden Taiwan had the QR codes. Like one day you did not have this system, and the next day we had this system and the codes were everywhere, and you could use them, and it worked. I was really impressed. I thought, wow, this went really quickly. In Germany, we don't even have like a Tianbao car for everybody, because for 20 years they've been arguing about, I don't know, why it shouldn't work. And here, Taiwan can just introduce a thing like this. And yeah, so I think this is something that I also would like to try to make people in Germany, in my country, more aware of. The way that you think in Germany is not the only way that you can do things, right? There are other ways to deal with things, and they are not better or worse, they are just different. So it's one example where I think this shows it quite well. Because sometimes in Germany, when I think of how Germany deal with things, I think of this picture that I took in Cologne, I think, a few years ago. You know, this shows you, yes, this restaurant is allowed to have table and chairs outside, but only in this area here. And you can be sure that they would never move one chair over this area. And when I see this, I think I sometimes like the Taiwanese way of doing things better, but it's always, well, it's always great if you can compare, if you have a way of knowing both sides, how things can be done. I think this also has helped me a lot. This is one of the great things about living in Taiwan that I've learned here. So we could talk about more cultural differences, like, for example, different concepts of time and punctuality. This is a great book, by the way. It's called East Meets West. Or if you are dealing with problems directly or indirectly. Or we could also talk about Taiwanese concepts that I couldn't even translate straight away because there is no one word to express this in German, because some of them seem a bit alien to German people. But they are very normal in Taiwan, so this is something we could talk about later if you want to. And if you are interested in what I'm doing, you can find me on social media. I'm most active on Facebook and Twitter, but you can also find me on some other platforms. So, sorry I did it too long. I think you can do it a bit longer too, so it would be no problem. So, thank you very much so far, and talk to you later.
Thank you so much, Klaus. So, very, very interesting. And later, you can take notes about your questions, and later you can ask whatever you want. Remember that after now, the next presentation with Cédric, we have a round table. So we six, we will be here, and we will speak, and we will talk about some topics. And after that, we will open the floor to the questions, okay? So it would be very good if you have any question and whatever you want. It would be fantastic. So now, welcome to Cédric, and thank you so much, Klaus.
Klaus, can I put your... Yeah, just... YouTube and just maybe the in Yeah. The subject of today's, I don't know, lecture, conference, meeting, whatever you want to call it, is about the cultural differences between Europe and Taiwan, right? But what I think is very interesting is first of all, you can see a huge difference between German and France because he came so prepared with PowerPoint and this is what I came with. So I mean that's awesome. This is better prepared. No, I mean this is just a few pages printed, and I thought when I was looking at it, I said, yeah, maybe I could show my YouTube channel or whatever. I mean, thank you so much. You are an inspiration. Germans and friends in Europe are like very close, like people. You could say brothers, but very, very different. And I think that's why the relationship works. Actually, it's a mistake to think that that people who look alike and think alike should do things together. I mean, it's not that they can't. It's just that it's not a prerequisite. And the more different you are, the richer the relationship can be. And I think that's why eventually Europe happened is because France and Germany are so different that Europe had to work. And that's how we made it work, with our differences, not because we think it's the same. Of course you have to have some common values, but you don't have to be exactly the same. So yeah, that's what I think. However, there is many bridges. I don't have the chair in front of me. There are many bridges between Klaus's occupation and mine. I also come from. I mean, you come from film school, and I did a little bit of that as well. I mean, university. But the fact is, you don't really make a living making movies until you actually make a living working in movies. But before you get to that point, you have to do a lot of little jobs, odd jobs. And the fact is, even though I wanted to be a filmmaker since I'm something like 8 years old, because I was a child actor, and as a child actor I spent like 2 weeks on the set of a short film where I was the lead character. And after those 2 weeks, and I saw the director doing everything on set, I mean, cutting the shots. And I told my mom, I don't want to be an actor anymore, I want to be a director. Because being a director is the shit. I mean, this is you know, like, it's all about your vision, and you have a whole team of people making what you want to happen. But I was 8 years old. And I made my first short film when I was about maybe 18, like very, very amateurish short film. So it took me like 10 years, between 8 to 18, to put something on camera. And then it took me probably another 10 years to do my first professional short film, which is basically not doing anything except having a vision. And then communicating to my crew what I want, like to the actors what I want, and then to the DP, director of photography, what I want, and the sound, the art direction. So it is a long process. And now I am 46 years old, and 2 years ago I made my first feature. So that gives you an idea of, you know, basically the timeline of a filmmaker's career. I mean, if you look at Steven Spielberg, he was way faster than me. But if you look at me, like 8 years old, I want to be a director. 18, I made my first very amateurish short film, something like 28 or 30 something, my first professional film, and then a short film, and then over 40 to do my first feature. So that's takes some time. Anyway, I'm losing track of everything, and including like, why are we here? Yeah, you're right. The differences between France and Taiwan. Well, when it comes to movies, there is this anecdote by a Belgian actor named Benoît Poulvord, and he said something about the difference between Belgium, making movies in Belgium, and making movies in France. And actually, I thought, even though it's all within Europe, I thought it's very interesting, because what he said about the movies, the way movies are made in Belgium, is very close to the way they are made in Taiwan, which is less hierarchy, less rules, a much freer way to do things. And so he was giving this example, this little anecdote on the film set he was in France, and they were setting up a shot, and the camera, let's say, was looking that way, right? And in the back, the shot was supposed to be empty, and then there was a car in the shot in the back, an unwanted car, not part of the movie. Like, there was a car in the shot, and then when they realized that there was a car in the shot, everybody started yelling, and it started with the director, like, "What the, fruit is that car doing in the shot?" And then he went to the first AD, first assistant director, like, "Why is there a car in my shot?" And then the first assistant director became like super angry and told the second assistant director, "Why is there a car in the shot?" And then, "What can we do? Who put that car in the shot?"
And then he went down like all the way down like to art direction and production and assistant manager and all the way down to the production assistant, like intern. And like, why is there a friggin' car in the shop? And that's the way we do things in France. Like from the top to the bottom, it's like, why is there a car in the shop? In Belgium, we say like, whose car is this? Oh, here are the keys. Let's just move the car. So that's a big difference between France and Belgium, and what it says is, it's all about what I said. It's all about hierarchy. There is, if you think of the way to make a movie is very much like a battle plan, and it's a very military-like organization, where there are like generals, and then lower-ranking officers, and then the grunts, like the soldiers. And a film set in France is very much like this. And the fact is, because it's very much like this, there is very little communication from the bottom of the ladder to the upper scales of the ladder. And you could say it's good or bad, depending on where you look at it, but it doesn't have really communication, and everything takes a lot of time, because when you're a director in France and you say, oh, I don't want the tables to be like this, then you have to say again, your first AD, the tables have to change, and then the first AD tells to the art director who's in charge of organizing the set, or set dresser, let's move the chairs or the tables. But because I made my first feature in Taiwan, and if I think that the tables are not exactly aligned in Taiwan, I would just go, the tables are not aligned, so I'm going to go like this. And because I stopped doing it, then my first AD would help me out, and then the art director would also help me out. But in France, it would take half a day to put the tables aligned. In Taiwan, it takes 5 minutes. So that is a cultural difference. It's all about how we are kind of like in Taiwan, we all are in the same level. It's like it's a flat hierarchy. Whether you are the boss or at the bottom or somewhere in between, we all look at each other as equals. Not in France. When I was a journalist, in France I was a journalist too, actually. So when I was a journalist for TV, I went on a lot of movie sets. I was a journalist specialized in movies. So I went on a lot of movie sets. And I've seen some movie sets where in French we have like the vouvoiement, like the polite way of, and a kind of deferral way of talking to each other. I've seen movie sets where people would use the vouvoiement, which was like very shocking for me. Like, you are here with people that you're going to work with every day of the week for like, let's say 2 to 6 months, and you're going to use vouvoiement every day. It boggles the mind. It's impossible. There's no vouvoiement. I mean, there is actually in Chinese, but you would never say me something on a film set in Taiwan. I mean, it's very immediately way friendlier and way more efficient to do things. So that's one thing to take into account when it comes to cultural differences. But because hierarchy is so, it's impossible to deny it in France, then you actually work within that frame. And once you have to work your way up. And if you are, let's say, in the art team, and you think there's something like, let's say, going back to those tables, maybe you are like an assistant art or set dresser, and you think maybe actually because the character or whatever is losing his mind, maybe it would be more interesting if the tables were like
kind of like wider. And in France, you are in the art team, and you would say to your boss, not to the director, you would say to your boss, how about the tables are wider? And then the head of the art team would say to the first AD, how about the table are wider? And then the first AD would say to the director, but it's possible to have your idea go up the ladder if you follow the line of command, the chain of command. What I've seen in Taiwan is if the director has said something, no one would dare. Even though you can talk, and there is this illusion that we are all on the same level, but actually it is an illusion. If the director or anyone above had decided anything, it's basically impossible to change it. Especially if you make a point that it would be better for the story or whatever. Why? Because there is what I call, what everybody calls the face culture. And someone above you cannot be proven wrong. I have an example for this. When I was working in Taiwan, I was working in a distribution company. I was a script reader for a distribution company. And my job was to read scripts before they were made. And then I would write a review, a summary of the story, and a review, like what is the potential of the movie. And so it was my job to give the boss some kind of advice. Because it's my function, it's okay to give your opinion on something. And then the company where I was working, they were commissioned with organizing a film festival. And because I was a journalist in France, and we were at the beginning of organizing the festival, and we were thinking maybe we could invite some directors. And because we're in Taiwan, the first directors they were thinking about is inviting some Korean directors and some Chinese directors and Japanese directors. But of course, I don't have any connections there. But I was a movie journalist in France, so I have a lot of connections back in France. And there was this European director that I thought would be interesting, kind of big in Europe, let's put it this way. And then I thought, okay, I have those connections back in France, and maybe we could. This director just made a movie, and she's made like a few more, so there could be some kind of retrospective of her work. And in that meeting, they were kind of like, oh, come on, she's too big. She could never come, and it's a waste of time. And I said, well, actually, it's maybe not a waste of time, and I think I can, I can make some calls, write some emails, and they were like, okay, whatever. If you want to waste your time doing this, just do it. So I started writing emails to my PR contact and journalist contact, and then little by little, email after email, I started getting closer to that director, and eventually I got the email address of that director's agent. And so I extended an invitation and said, okay, this new movie, and we'd like to do a full retrospective of all the movies that the director made. And they replied to me, and the answer was positive, like, yes, the director would like to come to Taiwan to present their work. So when eventually I had the good news, and we had a weekly meeting at the production distribution company, I said, guess what? I have the director that you told me I couldn't get. And I thought it was good news. I was very, very happy to share the news. But actually it was not a good news, because what did I do? I proved that the boss of the company was wrong. I proved him, even though he said it's impossible to get that person, that it was possible. And I actually, it was not my intention, but I made the boss lose face. And so eventually we invited the director, and as the date of the festival was coming closer, I was like, why are we not contacting the media? Why is there not a press conference? I mean, it's such a huge European director. I said, it's a waste of time, forget about it. And so at first, she was too big for the festival. It was a waste of time to make that person come. But eventually, I made that person come, and you're telling me it's a waste of time to to have media cover it. And I was like voicing my disagreement. Second mistake. Not only did I make the boss lose face, but I was questioning his whole strategy for the festival. Eventually, the director came, there was no media coverage, no nothing, she just came and went. The fact is, the audience really liked their work, and there was the reconnection between her and the audience. But the media would never know about it because they were not invited to even, see what happened. And you have to, like going back, I had been working for that company for 2 years, right? And on this festival for like 2 or 3 months, just to organize and do everything. 2 weeks after the festival was over, the boss asked me to go to his office and said, I'm not required to come anymore. I was fired. I was fired not because I made any mistake. I was fired because I did my job. Well, I did the job that I was hired for, but not within the frame of the, let's say, the company culture in Taiwan, because I was obviously always respectful, but I was not aware of the face culture. And the fact is, and that, I was fired, there was no way around it, but it made me realize that even though hierarchy is so prevalent, even within the enterprise, the companies in France, but you can disagree with your boss. And as long as you are respectful, you can disagree and still have a job at the end of the week. But here, even though you may be right or wrong, as soon as you disagree with the boss, you are done. So that's a big cultural difference, I would say. And there's another thing. I have a company with my wife. We are a 2-people company. I'm a writer, director, producer. She's a writer, producer. And so sometimes she's working on cases that I'm not involved in. But because we work together, I can see that, especially with COVID, when she has meetings, the meetings are online. And so she works with, for us she's a director, but producer, but for others she's like an executive producer. It's like one step under. And so when she has meetings, she's listening to people who are like above her. And then I realized how much people in a higher position like the sound of their own voice. What I mean by that is when there's a meeting, I can hear one voice talking over and over and over and over and over. And then sometimes the other people would say a little yes, a little no, a little intervention, and then the first speaker would start talking over and over and over again. It's like there is no exchange, basically. When whoever is above, like the main producer, the director, they say, I want this and that and that and that, we're going to do it like this and that and that and that. And there is no other voice. Basically, when I made our first feature, the very last day, I will show that a bit later. But when I had a meeting with my team, and it's a movie in Taiwan, right? I had a director of photography, I had an art director, I had a sound engineer, and I was like, I want this. How can you do that for me? And basically, my talking part was like, like I want this and that and that and that. How can it happen? And then they would basically explain to me how can they make my vision happen. But there is always an exchange. And there's a conversation like, oh really, but I would rather have this and that, or yeah, okay, I like this idea, but it's always a creative process. I don't see the creative process here. Maybe I'm not involved enough, maybe, I don't know. But it's very surprising for me how when you are in a position of power, and it's actually a loss for them, because as a director, I like the idea that I have a vision, but I don't have all the answers. And like, if I want to shoot something in a certain way, maybe it's possible, maybe it's not. Maybe, or even like some technical aspects. Like, I would like something very red. And then the DP tells me, you know what, with the camera we have, the kind of sensor we have, the red doesn't translate so well. can you think of something else? I mean, there's always an exchange, and that's how we can create something that eventually is richer or more collective. But there is none of that here. So at first I was like, oh, we are so ridiculous in France because with the hierarchy it's impossible to do anything, but actually the hierarchy is there to organize the creation of something. But when it comes to the creative aspect of it, everybody speaks with an equal voice. Whereas here, there's like seemingly no hierarchy. We are all friends and we are all like, but the fact is, everybody is aware that we are not friends. Everybody is aware that this person is the boss and my job is to just shut up. And I'm like, where's the creation there? Where's the collective there? So it's not like, I'm not saying like it's better there and it sucks here, or it's better here and it sucks there. It's just, there are some aspects of the way we make movies in France that are bad. Like whose car is in the frame, you know, like, this is ridiculous. But once you overcome this, let's say, structural imperative, you can still make things, and you can still disagree, and you can still compromise. Whereas here, it's like we're all friends and we are all like laughing, but the fact is, it's just an appearance, it's just an illusion. So, I don't know, I'm happy to be making movies here, but I'm also happy to bring the French way of making things in Taiwan because I'm working with very, very, very talented people. And I would be so stupid to not listen to them. So again, as a director, my job is to have a vision. It's not to execute every single aspect of that vision. And I think it's through the creative process. And you have to, when you're on set, the hierarchy makes things moving in a kind of smooth way. And it's a mix of remembering it and forgetting about it that allows you to move forward, in my opinion. Okay, so that's about it for my personal experience with cultural differences. Now, let me show you a little bit of the things that we do with Kamome in Taiwan. So here's a presentation of my company, and the images you're going to see were shot on the set of my first feature, the very last day. So here you are. Okay. So, as I guess you recognize me, this is my face. You saw me with all my team, and you could see the DP, director of photography, and there's the first AD, first assistant director. There's also the script supervisor. all the team members are there, and we had basically like 2 months of pre-production where we would meet every week and advance in preparing the shoot, and again there was never any monologue like what I'm doing now. It was always, okay, here is the list of problems that I need being solved, and I can allow myself to say I want, and be kind of like bossy, which is what my position as a director and producer and writer calls for, but it's always about the conversation, and week after week. My team members would sometimes say, okay, this we can do, this we can't. And no one lost their job because they said they can't. It's more about, okay, if we can't do it that way, then let's find a solution and let's find a way to do it differently. And I think from my experience, it was very enriching for everyone because I was empowering the team to find solutions for themselves, and I was trying to create an environment where speaking is key, and I think here in the university it's also we had this conversation earlier. You might think that a teacher has all the answers, like a director has, or like the CEO of a company has. The fact is, no one has all the answers. We have all the questions. And so when you are in the position as a student, your job as a friend who has been, I've been a kid and I grew up and I went to school, blah, blah, blah. I was lucky enough to have teachers who also asked me to participate and to bring solutions as well. So I think your job is not just to listen to the teacher and say, oh, the teacher said this, so I should do this, or the teacher said that, I should do that. No, it's more like, the teacher said this, then why? Why? What am I learning? Why is the teacher teaching me that? And what can I bring me as a student to the table to maybe evolve on a question or bring another point of view about it? And so my point here is not to mess up with the teachers that I did on anything. No, it's more like it's all about the hierarchy again. We are aware that the teachers have more experience and more knowledge than you may have as a student. It doesn't mean you can't question them, or it doesn't mean you can't bring your own opinion about a subject. And not only this, but you absolutely should speak up, because and especially sometimes you might think, oh no, I don't dare ask that because this is such a stupid question. You know what? You are students. You are not only allowed, but entitled to be stupid. because if you don't ask your stupid questions, now you will never learn. Actually, you will never know that it was stupid in the first place. And being stupid is your strength, basically. I don't mean that obviously in an insulting way. What I mean is, okay, there's this. My mind is going in all directions, but follow me for a second. The way I'm speaking right now, usually French people are very famous for speaking lousy English. So why can I speak English like this? Because when I was a student, I spoke very poorly, and I made mistakes. Like every other word, I made a mistake. My classmates, they never made mistakes. You know why? Because they never spoke. I was speaking all the time. And the teacher actually sometimes has to say, like, Cédric, please shut up, because there are other students in the class. But it was like, okay, so who else wants to answer the question? They were like this. Okay, then Cédric, since you have so many things to say. And I would start talking very poorly, making mistakes after mistake after mistakes, and then the teacher would correct me, because that's basically their job, right? I mean, to teach us and to correct us. And because I've been corrected so many times, eventually I could speak that kind of English. It's true for everything. Back to the set we, as you know, we have like heads of departments, and we have interns. In every department, there are interns. There are lighting interns, set dressing interns, production interns. Obviously, they don't know anything. So, why do we have interns? One, they are cheap. When you make a movie, it's important. But basically, most of them didn't go to film school. Going on our set was their film school. And many of them told us that they have learned so much because they were allowed to ask as many questions as they wanted. And sometimes they made sense, sometimes they made no sense at all. But every head of departments was willing and took the time to say, basically explain why things are done in a certain way. But there was one day we shot in the airport, and we had like very little time to shoot in the airport. And because it was in the airport, we were not allowed to use a tripod like this. It's forbidden to use tripods in an airport. So we had to use a gimbal. We didn't have the money for a Steadicam, especially few people know how to use a Steadicam anymore, and my DP didn't know, so we had to use a gimbal. It's like a smaller kind of Steadicam. Anyway, but one, it's not. I personally hate gimbals. They don't offer the same stability of the image, and we're trying to make the shot work, and it was like more like a going backwards kind of shot where it was a conversation between two characters, and basically I was behind my monitor and it didn't work. Either the image was like too shaky, or sometimes we found a way to stabilize the image, but then the actors were like moving out of the frame because you have to have the actors and the cameraman work at exactly the same speed, which is kind of impossible, especially it was a very long conversation. So we spent, like, we had only 2 hours to shoot in the airport, and we spent 2 hours, we wasted 2 hours trying to make something work that didn't work. And then my set photographer came to me because his job is basically to take pictures of us working. And he said, you know, I was like walking around and I saw this terrace over there, and maybe you would like to see that angle. So I left my team and I went with my photographer, and I went on that terrace. I was like, yeah, right. This is an interesting angle, and two, I could have actually everything in one shot. I can have my camera on like handheld on the DP's shoulder, but with a telephoto, I can follow the two characters talking. Instead of being in front of them, I can follow them kind of like a CCTV. And they were like walking along the ground floor of the airport. It was like in Songshan. And then go up the elevator, and from that vantage point, I could follow the whole like 50 or 60 seconds conversation. And this is not something I thought about. I actually drew storyboards for the movie before shooting because I had a certain idea. And it took, because we were like very much stuck, and it took the set photographer to share his view of that. Because I was on set, I couldn't see anything, but his job was to just walk around. And because he shared his view of something that I didn't foresee, he actually allowed us to finish. We had 4 hours to shoot, wasted 2 hours, and it took less than 2 hours to shoot the whole conversation, the remaining time we had, and we eventually finished our time in the airport without, going over time or paying more money to the airport. Shooting in the airport is very expensive. So that's how the collaboration between people from different positions on set allowed us to reach the end and do the movie and eventually finish it. Maybe I can try to show you the trailer of the very last day here.
星星睡了吗？
应该睡了。全世界里，我生命中最重要的女人，就只有一个。
你刚在他房间干嘛？我听到你们还在聊天。
没什么，只是跟他说声晚安。
半个台湾的人都知道你要出新书了 ，OK？
他写的东西每一本都是一样的。
你看你父亲的事是我第一本小说的灵感。
你还写了你姐姐的死，你祖父生病，你好朋友自杀，你还要我继续说吗？
这就叫做灵感。
我不认同，这叫剽窃。
你告诉妈妈为什么是他打架是不是啊？你到底在想什么？我告诉过你，我比你更清楚你爸是个怎样的人。我最不懂就是你为什么要假装你很关心我。
你是谁？
一定叫我林美小姐就好。
跟你在一起，我感觉回到以前年少轻狂的那些日子。
我在山上有一间小屋，你想跟我一起去那边走一走吗？
你在干嘛？
我要走了。
你走了，你要我怎么办？
或许你可以写一本跟我们离婚有关的书来卖。你知道你的问题是什么吗？你从来没有说过。你根本不知道真正的痛苦是怎么一回事。
Okay, that's about all the time we have. I wanted to give you a little introduction about the storytelling structure, but maybe that's for another time. It's actually, there's a lot of things to say. And, sorry. And maybe we can do that some other time. We'll see with Bruno if we can have something express, like uniquely dedicated to storytelling and the 3-act structure and everything. That would be awesome. Anyway, thanks for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Cédric. So, as you see, we have a very brief introduction. I know we need more time to go deeper, but after to know a little bit about our speakers, so we have a recess for 10 minutes. So now at 6 o'clock we'll come here and we will go deeper with the topics. Okay? So see you in 10 minutes at 6 o'clock. That's it. So you need anything? I'm going to come here. So now what we are going to do is a round table. So basically what we are going to do is we will talk, okay? So of course focusing in the conversation. And after 30 minutes, we will jump with the Q&A, okay? With some questions. So please, Chayo, ask your questions because it's very good opportunity. You have experience with some fields that we never see usually. And you, for example, experience that you have with foreigners, usually are or students or teachers. Okay? So to have this kind of fields, at least I love to listen some podcasts related to other jobs that we never think, you need to do this. For example, when you talk about pre-production, that last week I listened some interview, some director in Netflix, and I was, how to say, asombrado, how to say? Astonished, because he thought that they were working with pre-production, it means before to start to film, for 1 year. My God, 1 year. Just preparing the skits, this, what are we going to do, this, that, incredible. And the record was 3 months, something like that. So it was like incredible. And after that, got the edition and everything. It's like something that we didn't know, we don't know. If we don't know, if we don't meet people that is in this field. Okay? So, Chayo, and go to ask your questions in 30 minutes. Okay? Okay, so I would like to start with with some questions about the I will start if you don't mind. When you become journalist or director, for me is very hard. I think is to jump from what I like to what I really want to do to get my money, to get my job. For example, Klaus, you study film studies. So I think it's more easy. It's like you study that, so you will work with that. But Cédric, no. Cédric studied another thing, but you jump, find one day you decide to say, okay, I want to work here. I want to this job can be my job, my profession. So is that part so difficult? How it works in your mind when you need to decide, like for example with the students when they finish their studies and they think, what can I do with my life? I have so many tracks. What I need to do? So how is working in your mind, in your experience?
Did that one first? Okay. Okay. So yeah, it's not an easy path. So like I said, I wanted to be a director since I'm 8, right? And I've had a little bit of experience with like the family camcorder and this kind of stuff. And eventually I went to university, and I thought if I study film in university, I will learn how to make movies. And that was a mistake, because in university, in France, the first 2 years to have a movie diploma is the history of film criticism between the two Great Wars. and so for like 2 years, you study those old French movies. It's very interesting. Don't get me wrong. It's just not what I wanted to do. I wanted to like use cameras and lights, actors, and so I was very unhappy. So eventually, when I realized that university is not the right path for me, I started working. And in my mind, because I've always been, let's say, an acute observer, I went on a internship in an advertisement agency, and I was looking at the graphic designer, and I thought the way that you design advertisement, or the way that you design a double page in a magazine, is very much the same rules as you would design the frame of a movie. Like it's how basically in a given frame, either vertical or horizontal, you need to direct the audience's eye to that information or that information, like with the choice of the picture, the choice of the colors, the choice of the size of your font. So in my mind, by working as a graphic designer, it was like one step closer to actually making movies, rather than just studying movies that were made by others. And then little by little, I started as a graphic designer in an advertisement agency, and then graphic designer in a magazine. And then from graphic designer, I became a writer, and the writer became an editor of the magazine. And eventually, from the printed press journalism, I moved on to TV journalism, where I started using cameras. So, but in my mind, it was always part of the plan. I knew it would be a long run plan, and I knew it did take years. But eventually, from graphic design using Quark Express or InDesign, Adobe InDesign, to eventually using cameras and shooting people, there was like maybe 10 years. But if you know what you want to do and basically have a game plan, it doesn't matter how much time it takes, because you know where you're going.
So basically, the thing is, you are trying this, that way, and finally you got the point. And I think you mentioned that it's very important to have the internship. So it's very important. I think to take notes about that is very important because sometimes we want to do something and we want to get a job. But no, before to get a job, you need to try so many things.
Yeah.
I see. How about you, Klaus? How did you jump from? You say you start from filmmaking. You say no. I prefer to be a reporter. How was working that?
What I studied at university was not filmmaking, but also film studies. So what you described, like theory, history, and so on. And why did I do that? I mean, it's a bit. In my case, school did not really prepare me for what came after that. So we did not really learn about which paths can you go. You can study, you can make an apprenticeship, you can study at a different kind of university. Somehow I finished high school very unprepared. And so at that time, luckily, we still needed to do the military service or the alternative civil service. And so I did the civil service and I had 1 more year to think about what is it I actually want to do. And my parents basically gave me no pressure. They said, well, you decide what you think is best for you. We will support you. Maybe if I had chosen something very, very weird, they would have, I don't know. But what I did, they were okay with. And then I realized I like to watch movies and read about movies and learn more about movies. So that's why I decided, okay, you can study this actually. So I want to study this. And then it was very interesting. I liked it a lot. I never felt like pressure. It was like, great, my hobby. I can write my thesis about it and so on. But then when I got towards the end of my studies, I also realized it's not easy to find a job in this field. You know, there are only so many film critics who can make a living by writing film criticism, and there are only so many people who run a film festival or who decide which scripts will be turned into a movie. So I thought, maybe I need to think about widening my options, what else can I do? And luckily at that point, during my university studies, I also became aware of a journalism program / scholarship that I applied to and I was accepted to. And so during my studies, I already started doing internships and taking some courses about writing news and so on. And so I realized this is another field that is somehow related. It's also about media. It's also, if you work for TV, it's also about composing images and editing a story. So what I learned in my film studies was not totally for nothing. But this is something that's interesting to me because when you work as a journalist, I realize every story you do is like a new challenge. So you start with 0, and then you know at the end I need to have a finished story about something maybe I don't know a lot about right now. And so you need to learn about this yourself, and you need to think about how do I tell this to other people, and who do I need to talk to, and where do I need to go, and then maybe film something, or who do I need to interview, and in the end, you need to sit down and finish it and turn it into a finished product. It's also a creative process. And then in the end you have a finished product, and maybe it helps other people to know something more about something they didn't know about before. So you also have an effect. It's not only good for you, you also maybe have an effect on other people. And then you can do next day you can do a different story, or next week you can do a different TV report. And this I found very exciting because I didn't want to do the same thing every day, you know. And this allowed me to learn something different and to make something different and creative every time. And then I was just lucky enough that I got accepted into this trainee program because, of course, a lot of people want to do that. Maybe 10 times more, 20 times more than they accept in the end. And I was really lucky they picked me. They could have gone the other way. If that TV station hadn't picked me, maybe one of the others that I applied to, maybe none of them, and then I don't know what I would be doing today. So yeah, but once I was part of that TV station with the training program, then it went more smoothly from then on. But at first, like finding out what you really want to do, I was lucky. I thought I just listened to my inner voice telling me what I like to do, and in the end it worked out. So I can recommend this, but there's no guarantee. So I'm happy I did it. I'm happy it worked out. I don't know. My life could have taken some very, very different roads also.
Okay, thanks a lot, because I think it's quite interesting, because you both, it's not like you're waiting for what you like. If you have opportunities, you have the chance to do that, you try this, that, and the opportunities is coming, but after you move. So that is very, very, very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, maybe some people from the age of 8, they know they want to become a doctor, and they, all their life, they know I want to study medicine and become a doctor, and then it's great. Okay, perfect. I wish most people would have the opportunity to decide about what they really like. I realize maybe it's not possible for everybody because of certain pressures, or but yeah, if you realize there's something you want to do, then yeah, do internships and try to do this go this extra mile, and try to make some experiences and first-hand experiences of what this is about. And maybe don't wait until you graduate from university, but take the opportunity during the years that you spend at university to find out more about which is the best way for you to go.
And talking about this, to get experience and this kind of jobs, what do you recommend, for example, for students who finish their degree and they want to jump to some job? Is first to be freelancer like you are actually, so I guess you prefer to be freelancers, or to get into the company. What do you recommend to the students?
Before I answer your question, I will get back to it. I just want to say, when you know what you want to do very early on, like I said, I wanted to be a director since I'm 8, it is actually a gift, and it's also kind of a curse. It's a gift because it gives you a direction. And every choice I made, in my mind at least, was one step closer to that direction. So that's a gift. It's a curse because basically every single day you realize how far you are. And even one step closer, 2 steps closer, 10 steps closer, but you are still so far. And now I have a production company, and I made the first feature, but I'm still not like a working director making money. So I look behind me and I said, wow, I've traveled a lot, but I'm still so far. So yeah, it is a gift and it is a curse at the same time. Now, to answer your question about, I've been a salaryman in the magazine where I was actually first in the advertisement agency, and then in the magazine, and then in TV stations, a website. I worked for the Elle magazine website, and it's great because you don't have to worry about paying your rent next month. So it gives you that kind of like that peace of mind. But because there's going to be assignments after assignments after assignments after assignments, without you having to basically do anything to get it, you are always busy, and it's kind of like your goal or your dream or whatever you want to call it. It's kind of always in the back burners. And then eventually I was not a salary man anymore. I was not an employee anymore. I became a freelancer, and finally I could choose. I could organize my own time, and I could say to myself, okay, I will take like this job and that job, but I will not take this one because I also want to make a short film. So I need to save time for writing and for pre-production and casting and everything. So only after I became a freelancer I could actually not make like tiny steps in the direction of my goal. I could make like strides. I could make jumps. And eventually, when I made my first professional short film, it was like I learned so much more than in film school. And this is really one, how I learned the most, and two, how I got closer to my ultimate goal by becoming a freelancer. When you are an employee, it's still possible, but the fact is, after you've worked 8 hours in the office and you go back home, it's very natural that what you want to do is just, rest. And it's, I mean, you can have the discipline to work some more, but I think eventually you might have to be careful about burning yourself out. If you work 8 hours for your boss, and then you work another 3 or 4 hours for yourself, then when do you have a social life? When do you rest? When do you just live your life, basically, like enjoy, like movies or art or just a walk in the park. When all you can think about is work and then more work and then more work, you forget the most important thing, which is to live. Especially when you're in the creative arts. If you don't have a personal life, then basically you don't have any story to tell. So at least that's my experience.
There was one point. So when I was working at this TV station as a reporter in Germany, I was also freelancing, and there it worked like this: the people who went out and filmed the stories, they were freelancers, and the people, the editors, telling them, okay, next week we need this story, and next week you do this story. They were the people on a proper fixed job there. And at one point, after a few years, a lot of my classmates who started at the same time like me, they started applying for this kind of jobs, like for 1 year, limited position at first, and then they kind of, some of them got into this system, and then they could, from there they could start climbing the corporate ladder, They could become the assistant head of the department, and then they could become the personal assistant to the head of programming, and so on. So, go this way. But I thought that if I change to the other side of the desk, then I will not have this, what I just described, this freedom to make something new every week or every day, and to go out and make something very different. I would be sacrificing this, and I was not ready to do that. And ultimately, because I was so flexible still at that time, this allowed me to come to Taiwan for 3 months, and then I decided to move to Taiwan. I thought, well, okay, maybe it doesn't work out. Maybe when I moved to Taiwan, I realized I cannot find any work here. It was just a bad idea, and then maybe after a year, I will move back to Germany, and then I can still pick up where I left off as a freelancer. So this allowed me the flexibility. So again, if on the other hand, if you want to be very sure that you have the same paycheck every month, then you need to go into the more stable position. So yeah, it's up to everybody to decide really.
Because it's a question that at least I had before, and I know so many people have. So anybody want to have questions, Manfred?
Yeah, thank you. I would like to get back to the creative process that in the fields that you are working in. If I remember correctly, Cédric said here in Taiwan it is difficult to work with a team and be creative. To me it sounded more like creation or creativity takes place here in Taiwan on an individual level. And my question, of course, is how can you still make a creative product in the end, come up with a finished movie in the end successfully, if that's the case? Because in a way you still have to work together, and you have to make it work. Which paths are there that you can take? And to put another perspective on creativity in the creative process, I would also like to ask both of you what you feel is different in your job here in Taiwan? What, let's put it another way. How do you think would your job be if you did not come to Taiwan, but stayed in France or in Germany? Would you still be willing and able to do similar stuff that you do here in Taiwan? Or if not, what would the reason for that be?
So the first part of your question about the creative process. The thing is, when you're a painter, it's just you and your canvas. So you can do that. When you're a writer, just you and your typewriter or your computer. You can do that. Same for musicians. When you're a filmmaker, you depend on so many other people that the only way to do it is through the collective process. And I didn't say it's impossible to do it, it's just the way they do things in Taiwan doesn't seem so collaborative to me. And so I kind of brought a little bit more of collaboration in the way I do things. And eventually, when I did the feature, but I've made other short films in Taiwan, and we also made a fashion movie for the Fashion Week 2 years ago. And because there are so many people involved, and through the creative process, through the collective process, you kind of end up with something that maybe you did not envision in the first place. It's having a vision doesn't mean you are going to, like some kind of dictator, beat people into realizing your vision. It's more like, I have this vision and help me make it happen. But because people have different ideas about how to get there, actually the end product, if you want to call it a product, or the end creation is maybe not exactly what you thought about in the first place. But it's, in my experience at least, the result is more than the sum of its parts. By that I mean, with the creative process, the collective process, 1 + 1 = 10. It's not 1 + 1 = 2. Because my idea and new idea, they create something else that is in a way better or more interesting or richer than what each of us individually could have thought about.
To be more specific, what I meant is, did you kind of develop specific strategies to work with people here in Taiwan that you would not have to use in France, for example?
Actually, it was basically just communication. And communication, the thing about, well, again, like what I've seen is, there's this misconception from what I've seen in Taiwan a lot of times. People think communication is talking. Actually, communication is not talking, communication is listening. And again, it's not hearing either. Hearing and listening are two different things. The collective creative process is all about listening. And through listening, you can, it's just like you listen to me, it's you listen to me, I listen to you, we listen to him. And because of this, you can create something that is more interesting and richer than, but yeah. Now, very quickly, would I be doing the same thing if I was in France? We had this conversation, and also with, it's very difficult in France to create a company because of the, let's say, industrial or entrepreneurial frame in France. When you create a company, you start paying taxes before your company makes any money in. Basically before you earn €1, you already have to pay 1,000 euros to the government. In France, when you have a company, you only pay taxes based on what you earn. So could I be doing the same thing in France? Probably not. I would probably have to juggle between freelancing as an individual, not as a company, and doing whatever I can to create, but I would not have my production company. It's just too pricey, it's impossible. In Taiwan, from that point of view, Taiwan is very much a land of opportunity.
Creative collaboration when you work for TV as a journalist, you don't need as many people to finish the product, of course. I mean, you can do your story in one day and finish it, and you can even edit it the same day, and it can be shown in the evening news, or you can take a week to do it. In my case, sometimes I work all on my own. For example, the story about the German girl who makes the cakes, I did the camera as well, and I did the editing. So all the choices, all the creative choices were mine, which is also great, feels good. You also have no one to blame if something goes wrong in the end. If she's out of focus, then it's my fault. Sometimes I work together with the cameraman, like when we went to Matsu, which is also good because then you can bounce ideas off each other and it helps too. So for me, both ways are fine. If I had stayed in Germany, I think I could not have gone on to do this indefinitely, what I described you, like the consumer response on that, because this kind of freelance work at my TV station, after about 8 or 10 years, they would tell you, now it's time to move on. Now we get some fresh people, and you cannot stay with us all the time. So thank you, goodbye. So I would have hit that point sooner or later, and then I would probably have had to specialize, maybe in long documentary features or specialized in, I don't know, financial reporting, something like this. And now, like it turned out, I specialized in Taiwan. So now being here, of course, my special field of expertise is Taiwan. So somehow I'm limited a little bit. I cannot do all kinds of stories I want to anymore, but on the other hand, I found like a niche, like a little corner of the market that no one else had been doing before. And I decided this is where I want to position myself. Yeah. But if I had stayed in Germany, I would probably be doing something different now than in 2008.
Just to give a bit of our perspective in the difference between our job, like as you were saying, you can like think of a story by yourself and shoot it and do the editing as well, and you edit it basically like in 24 or 48 hours.
If it's a short story, yes.
Yeah, if it's a short story. Of course, if it's a long form documentary. So I'm going to compare apples and oranges, but for the feature, it took about 10 years to write the script, and then about 3 months pre-production, 28 days production, and then another 6 months post-production. So yeah, the scale is and we had on set we had like about 30 crew members plus the cast. So sometimes we were like 40 plus people on set. It is very much you, and that's why communication is so important, because when you are working with so many people, you have to be able to, one, communicate your vision, but also listen to how that vision can come to life eventually.
And also, when you visualize a scene, like you control every aspect of it. Like you choose the actors, the extras in the background, every hair on the actors' faces, every word they say. It's all under your control. When I do a story like this, I need to work with the reality that I find. Yeah. So I cannot change everything and make it fit. I need to, when I meet her in the kitchen where she's making the cake, and one wall is very boring and white and or I don't know, ugly. Then I cannot say, oh, let's paint this wall orange, it looks better. It just doesn't work. So I either show it or I stand the camera to the other side and I keep it out of the frame. I need to think of something. And sometimes, like you described with the shot where you use the high viewpoint and the escalator, sometimes you also need to adjust to reality really quickly, even though you planned 10 years before this scene. Yeah. So, yeah, but On the one hand, it's more creative freedom. On the other hand, it's limitation, and it goes both ways. I think.
Yes, I would like to ask you about the relationship between creativity and daily life. Because here we have today a cinema director that did his own society, and a journalist works as a freelance. So we may imagine that it's a dream for creative people, not to be able to live in your creativity. But can you be creative at every moment in your daily life? Or is it boring sometimes? Do you have to do technical work? So is it always the dream of a creative person, or is it also hard work sometimes?
Okay, I start with this time. I think for a journalist, you are somewhere in between. You are not the creative genius who is producing something out of thin air, like an author, a writer who's writing a novel. Maybe he can sit down and he can write whatever he wants to, and it's only his own imagination and his own talent that's limiting him. But as a reporter, you also work with the reality that you find. So even if you are not feeling very gifted today, or not feeling very creative today, when you meet someone, you do the interview with him, he's still there and you will still film him, you still have something in the end that you can take home. So it's not like I feel that I need to be an artist every day. Sometimes it's okay if you are a good craftsman, and then the experience is important. I mean, the first time I did a very brief 1-minute TV report, I was very nervous, and of course in the end it was fine, and then again and again and again, and you get more sure of what you're doing. So I realize, I now have enough experience when I know I go to film someone, to interviews and to show him at work, it will turn out okay in the end, because he's going to collaborate with me, my camera is okay, I have everything that I need, I did my research before, I'm not knowing exactly what is going to happen, but I can be pretty sure in the end it will be good enough to do its job. So I don't see myself as a creative artist, but as something in between. If I can use creative ideas, then I'm happy, but I know that it's not always the most important thing of what I'm doing.
Well, it's kind of the same, even though I'm not working in journalism so much. I sometimes should, because I need to make a living, right? So I sometimes work as a cameraman for documentaries from Arte, the French-German Arte, I don't know. And so there's a lot of that, actually, you know. You are definitely not a creative person 24/7, 365 a year. It's not like that. You very much have bills to pay. And basically you can allow yourself to be creative when all the bills are paid. So that's one thing. And another thing is, with the production company, when we are lucky, we work on a fashion movie, or on an advertisement, or on a short film, a mini-series. But the fact is, most of our clients are companies, and we do corporate videos. So it's at 80%. And even though, whatever the subject, I always come first with some kind of an idea of how to, even just like how to frame the interview of a talking head, you know, and how to light it and how, but then, like for instance, if you have like a light in front of you, all your face is very flat and it's kind of boring. So I like to put maybe the light on the side. You have some kind of like a nice shadow, and then the light behind to have a nice outline of the contour of the shoulder, the head, whatever. And then I worked a lot. I can work a lot on
doing that initially. But then the client comes and he goes like, but that's too dark. I want it brighter. And why do I see only the half of the face of that person? I want to see. And then, because they are the client, they are paying for this or that video and to convey this or that message. So you go like, it's a pity, but my beautiful frame, my beautiful lighting, instead of having the light on the side, I would have the light right in the face. So all the features of that person's face are like very clear. And I have like maybe another light there, another light there to make sure there's no shadow at all, because that's what the client wants. And then the creativity there is very, very, very slim, not to say non-existent. And when I was started doing that, like something like 7, 8 years ago, I could get like really angry and really pissed. But with experience now, I'm like, okay, if the client wants this, then let's do this. And very early on, I know when I can allow myself to be creative on any given budget, or when it's going to be, basically just a banking job, like to pay the bills, to pay. And the fact is, everything costs a lot of money. The camera we use cost money, the lenses, the tripods, and pieces like tripods, because we kind of move around a lot, they break, or the cameras, they get older. Now we have like 8K cameras, 12K cameras. Not that you need it, but some clients say, oh, they have like 12K cameras, like we should need 12K. And you're like, okay, then if 12K is not what is important, yeah, but I've heard you can have 12K, so we want 12K. Okay, let's have 12K, why not? I mean, so it's a lot of, there's also a lot of politics, actually, when it comes to running a production company. But I'm sure in journalism it's the same, You have to deal with people's ego, you have to deal with people's agenda, and so, yeah, the whole creative artist thing, it's when you're lucky you can have a little bit of that, but it's not every day. So I 5 minutes, because I would like to ask you 2 ugly questions. The first one, every month how much money you have? But if you don't want to answer, please don't answer. But what I mean is, if you are a writer, is at least what I know, you cannot be a professional writer unless you do some very specific things. But usually professional writers, they need to have conference, they need to teach, they have class. So that's, we can say, how they get the money. So for example, for a journalist, is you have some report and you sell your report and you get money, or for a filmmaker, you have a plane, you sell your plane to the producer and then you get money, and that's all? Or do you need to do any extra jobs like a writer? You have class, you have speech. You don't need to be a specific with to a subject.
Yeah, this reminds me of the question when I tell people, yeah, I'm a reporter in Taiwan, and then in Germany, people often ask me, oh really, can you live off that work? Then I say, well, do I look dead to you? I mean, obviously, I'm still alive, so if it wouldn't be working out in the end, I wouldn't be doing this for more than 10 years now. Also, but I can tell you a little, well, it's not a secret, but I don't tell it to everybody. Like you do your corporate commercials and all that to pay the bills. In the first few years in Taiwan, I only do stories from Taiwan, and I'm trying to do every little article, even a little newspaper article for a regional newspaper in Germany that only pays €100 in the end, and maybe €20 for the photo. And you can do that, but if you want to make your living like that, then you need to do a lot of those, and it really doesn't work out. So first of all, television is paid better than writing for newspapers, so I try to focus on television, but I still see myself primarily as working from Taiwan. That's my main job and what I'm really here for. And the other thing is nice, but it's not creative at all. You also need to be a good journalist. Also, good. You need to know the journalistic rules because you are responsible only yourself, and you can change the whole website. And if you make a mistake, nobody's going to correct it for you. It's just going to be there. And you decide which is most important today, what do I put on top and what do I put second and so on. So it's also responsibility. It's not really creative. And so I don't like to see that as my main work, and it isn't. But it's helpful.
When it comes to the kind of money we make, you have to keep in mind that I'm working with my wife. And basically we have like 3 kinds of jobs. The jobs that I have, which are usually from either French, sometimes German, production companies that commission me with shooting things here, and or lectures, or so what I do. There are the jobs that she has, and the jobs that we have together, and basically it all goes through our company. But those are the 3 kinds of activities. When we started like 7-8 years ago, when we had a shoot, like a small interview, some kind of like a very small corporate video, we would do budget that could be as low as 5,000 NT. And our, like 7 years ago, a big budget for us would be something like 35,000. And now we gravitate from 50,000 NT, which is basically our minimum, to the last big thing we signed is a 1 million NT contract. But so you might think like, wow, you're so rich now. But the fact is, when you sign a 1 million NT contract, it means you're going to hire more people, you're going to hire locations, lights. It's going to be more than 1 day, obviously. So actually, you're not making a million. It's just, but obviously you are making more. I'm not lying about this. But it's not like we're making a lot more. And sometimes with my wife, we think, my God, this is a 1 million budget. But we work our asses off so much more than we used to for 15,000. So the ratio of the amount of work provided for the amount of money we actually earn is sometimes at a loss with bigger budgets. And something else is, that's actually, at least the reality for us, when we work for small clients, we are usually paid at delivery. So the client hires us to do like a talking head about any kind of product. And we shoot it in 1 day, we basically edit it in 1 day, we send it to the client, they have some revisions, maybe 2 or 3 rounds of revisions, and we deliver the final video, and within a month, we get the 50,000 NT in the company's bank account. When it's like 500,000 or 1 million kind of budget, 1, the revisions are way more. And 2, it can take basically a year to get paid. So it means you have to have enough other jobs to keep on paying your bills, keep on paying your food, before you see any money on the big budgets. Because big budgets, big clients, they are not in any hurry to pay you. So it's actually, basically the point is it's never easy. And the bigger we grow, we also have, like I said, like bigger cameras. When you deal with bigger files, you need bigger computers. So basically, you earn more, but everything, the tools that you use, they also cost more. So again, we little by little, we make a better living than we did 7 years ago. COVID messed things up a lot, but it's a difficult living, and because of the delays between smaller clients and bigger clients, we have months where we can make like 200, 300 in 1 month, but it can also be sometimes followed by 2 or 3 months where we make 0. So it's a lot of, like arranging and calculating and making sure you don't starve before the next payment.
It's really interesting because I don't need to set up a company structure like this. So you probably, when you were 8 years old and you wanted to become a director, you didn't think about you need to become a businessman and you need to have calculations and spreadsheets and all that. So once you realized you would need to do this, you would need to go this way, how did that feel to you? Did that scare you, or did you just...
I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I'm lucky enough that I'm pretty good at budgeting. So because I work with my wife, so I usually do the budgeting phase. Because of my experience, I know how much does it cost to rent that much lights, or this kind of camera instead of that kind of camera, and how many people will I need to work with me in the camera team, in the art team. So I do the budgeting, which definitely I had to learn, like on the spot. And then, because of my, let's say, French personality, which can be sometimes full of temperament, I deal with clients as little as possible. Because of the whole, what I said, like the whole face thing, I would definitely say something wrong at the wrong time to the wrong people. So my wife takes care of dealing with the clients and also getting the payments. So, but none of us really knew that we would be business people. Actually, in a day, we spend more time dealing with numbers and money and boring stuff than we do the things we love. But on the plus side, the things that we do love, like being on set, it's so much pleasure that it kind of makes up for all the bad stuff. But it's definitely a balance.
Thanks a lot for your questions. I will give the second angry question because I prefer to ask maybe somebody has questions. If not, I will ask you the second angry question. So please, if you have any question for them, go ahead. I will give you the microphone and you can ask whatever you consider. Okay? See later? Okay. You're next. I saw you. Keep in mind who.
For Cédric and for Klaus, being an entrepreneur is difficult. And I know the beginning is exciting, the end is exciting because it's almost finished. But how do you stay motivated in the middle? What motivates you to get up and say, well, I'm going to do this, I'm not sure if it's going to work out, but I'm going to keep doing it? What is your motivation to get out of bed every day?
When I'm not working on a project currently, and then sometimes it's maybe tempting to say, oh, I want to slack off for a week now and maybe only do the most necessary stuff. But then every time you finish a project, maybe a TV report, and one that you really put a lot of your own creativity and thoughts into, then it makes you feel really proud. It gives you like a kick. And then you remember that feeling, and I think this is one of the things that drives you to, oh yeah, right now I don't really know where to start. I only know I need to do something about what do Taiwanese think about the Ukraine war, but I don't know who should I talk to and what can we film. But I know that in the end, when it's finished, it will feel great. So let's keep doing it. I think this helps. And once you've started shooting, this is especially different for film and TV. Then it's not like when I'm writing, I can write what I want, and I can call the person the next day, or I can even look up what he told someone else, and I'm just quoting him. I don't need to talk to him himself. But if you are filming something, it only counts what you have in the camera at the end of the day. So there's no excuses and there's no workarounds. If I know I only meet this person this one day, then I only have this one chance to film the scenes that I need with him. And then when I'm editing it in the end, I can only use what is in my camera and what's not out of focus, and the camera cannot be shaking and so on. So this is like extra adrenaline rush, I think, during the filming that makes pretty sure that you're not going to feel bored while you're doing it.
For me, when it's because we have different kind of budgets. When it's a smaller budget, like I said, it's like one day shoot, one day editing, some revisions. There's no slump. Basically, it's too quick to have any kind of problems with that, with motivation. When it's something that takes longer, basically the motivation is the people I'm working with, because we have developed not just working relationships, but very much like friendships. So when we first have a case and we start thinking, oh, on this we can work with this guy or that girl, that are basically now friends of ours, it's more like we're gonna have fun doing that. And it also helps because sometimes when you deal with a difficult client, and difficult clients do happen, at least when you have fun with the people you're working with, it kind of makes everything, just feel better. So yesterday I was in a recording session with a sound engineer that we love to work with. So, and this one is a very long process project. It's a like 15 minutes documentary for online streamer. And yeah, it kind of keeps every new step, like you shoot and then you edit with people and then you do the color grading, you have someone else and you have animators, and now the sound recording and sound mixing. So it's all those new steps and working with the people you like to work with again and again, that makes basically everything feel much easier and much better than if you just had to deal with it by yourself. So the people is the key. We have a question here with the guy with the blue shirt. Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah.
This one.
And then for your sharing, and I'm curious about how do hierarchy and equality work in company like in France or Germany, and how do they work, or how do they contact people or contact people to each other? And I would like to know about this one.
Very quickly, the hierarchy on the film set, the good thing is there's like 100 years history before me that took care of basically organizing people. I just follow basically that kind of organization. Where basically me and my wife, we bring our personal touch, is by the way we work with others and by the way we treat others. But when it comes to like who's above who and who makes the final call, because one thing you have to be aware of, you can't have too many cooks in the kitchen. At the end of the day, you have to have, everybody can have an opinion, obviously, but at the end of the day, with so many opinions, sometimes there has to be one final call. And that's what a producer is for, that's what a director is for. When you have like so many choices, you have to make the final call. But there's something also I've seen in, it's another example that I've seen in Taiwan, is sometimes when you have people that are kind of like at the same level, higher up but kind of the same level, you end up with no direction at all because it's compromised, but not for the sake of the project, it's compromised for the sake of everybody's ego. So when you compromise based on people's ego, the end product might not be so good. When you compromise with always keeping in mind the project itself, and that's why you need someone to have basically the final say. Depending on who has the final say, the result could be good or bad, but there's also something else, is you never want to do something bad. You never want to do a lousy story or a lousy video or a lousy, but sometimes things happen that are beyond your control, and it happens that sometimes you deliver something that is not as good as you thought it would be. And you have to learn, and you have to try to not repeat the same mistakes?
Because I'm mostly working alone or in a very small team. In my work, there's not so much hierarchy, but sometimes, I just told you before, sometimes when for example, I meet a German person, I want to introduce him, and he's working in a Taiwanese company. So I say, okay, we would like to meet you in your office, so people will learn about your work. And then I only know I want to film him walking into his office, sitting down at his desk, and then answer 2 questions, and that's it. But then in order to shoot in this company, to film in this company, I need to meet the boss of the company, the Taiwanese boss. And then the Taiwanese boss has prepared, and first of all, she prepared a big company presentation, like a corporate video, and we have to watch it. And after that, she says, yeah, if you want to talk to me, you can also interview me, and I tell you more about the company. We can do it here, in my office. And then I must understand so much that I don't tell her, no, sorry, you're not important enough. I only want to film him. Because then she would be angry at me, and she would maybe also take out her anger on the German guy working in her company because he made her be in this uncomfortable situation. And so but on the same time, I cannot spend 2 hours talking to her. Then I really know probably I'm not going to use, maybe I'm using 5 seconds of her working through from the left to the right one time, and then that's it. But so then I need to find a way to deal with this situation. So she's not unhappy, and I still get what I need in the time I have in the end.
Thank you so much for the question. So we have time for another question, okay?
I have 3 questions in total, so I want to just choose one. Okay, so I actually did a personal research of Cédric. So 2 years ago, you were with your wife traveled to Shanghai for promoting your movie.
Yes.
The very last day, and Shanghai is my hometown. So I want to ask you about your first impression of the city Shanghai, and also how was the promotion going?
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so at first I was a bit worried because there is a certain amount of violence in the movie, and we know that movies can be censored in mainland China, and I was very happily surprised that the movie was not censored at all. They didn't make any cuts, so I was very happy about that. And the organization of the Shanghai International Film Festival was very good, very smooth. We felt very welcome, and even though we have, my wife as a Taiwanese and me as a French living in Taiwan, we have sometimes different views. But that was never an issue, and we even had conversations like Q&A after the screening of the film, and I thought the questions from the audience were very, very deep and quite interesting, and it was overall a very positive experience.
Okay, 2 more questions. Well, I think we have another question.
Another one.
Or anybody, any question? Yes.
Sorry. You had 1 out of 3, that's not too bad.
Thank you. So how many questions can I ask? Just one? Yes, I choose the most relevant one. My question is for Klaus. So your presentation was really interesting. I'm French, and I have a very French point of view about Germany. And so I was just curious about, because you presented a little bit the point of view of German people or German media, to be more precise about Taiwan. And then I just wanted the opposite point of view, like have you ever questioned Taiwanese people about what they think about German people in general, about Germany? And as a German journalist, could you maybe just say a few words about how Taiwanese treat all Germany-related news or the news related to Europe, for example? Thank you.
I think if you remember the slide where I said, from a German point of view, Taiwan is far away and small and complicated. I think it works the other way around as well. When you are a standard Taiwanese internet user or TV audience, then what matters to you is Taiwan and China and Japan, and then the rest in Asia and US. And then Europe is far away, and Europe is very complicated. There's so many countries there, and it's really hard to, I think, watching from Asia, if you don't have some close relation to Europe, it's really hard to make sense of what's happening in Europe and how Europe is working and so on. So first of all, you need to take that into account. You cannot expect everybody in Taiwan to have a clear idea of what's happening in the major countries in Europe right now. So in my experience, well, foreign news in general are not given that much space, at least on Taiwanese television. I mean, online you can find what you want, it's just a question if you're looking for it. But if you watch the Taiwanese TV news, it is very little from Europe at all, I think. And then the biggest stories, of course, they will make it here. Like there's a new chancellor in Germany, or you had the refugee crisis in Germany, or some terrorist attack in another country. Of course, it will be in the news here, but then the question is, will people learn something more to understand the situation really? Like, what are the causes of this? Or will it stop at like the superficial thing? Okay, there was an election, there was a terrorist attack, and not the why did this happen. And I think most of the news reporting in Taiwan will stay on the superficial level, just like it's the other way around too. But there's also, of course, a few, I mean, I know a few Taiwanese reporters who lived in Germany, for example, or somebody who wrote a book about Germany, especially to make people more aware and understand more. So, just like I'm trying to do this here, there's also people doing it from the other side as well. And I'm sure in France, Taiwan, this will be happening as well. But it's really, the challenge is to reach out and reach more people than those who are like you interested in this very specialized subject. So the challenge for me is not to reach those Germans who are interested in Taiwan. I reach them anyway, and they will read what I'm doing. The challenge for me is appealing to those who did not know that they should be interested in Taiwan and reach them somehow. I'm sure it works exactly the other way around.
Thank you so much for the question. And so sorry because no more time for questions, but we will tell to our guests to give you some email or some social media address to contact them, and if you have any questions you can ask them. It would be fantastic. But I would like not to finish. No, I how to say. So sorry because I don't know how to say in English very good. What I mean is, I would like to not finish without to listen. If you have anything else to say that maybe we forgot to talk about, or some jobs, una obra, un trabajo, some jobs, some reports, some movies, some film that you want to promote, that you want to talk about that you are doing actually, that you would like to share with us, or something you would like to add.
So where can we watch this movie right now?
Amazon Prime, right?
Yeah, so that's the Chinese title. I don't know how to write it, and I barely know how to speak it. 最后一日, something like that. The very last day. It's for some reason it's actually kind of difficult to watch it in Taiwan. It's very easy to watch it when you're in North America. It's on a bunch of websites like Tubi, Amazon, this kind of thing. In Taiwan, however, there is one platform where you can watch it called Plex. And Plex is a streamer. It's an app that you can install on your phone or your tablet or your computer. And once you register on Plex, you can watch The Very Last Day there. Yeah, right. Cool. Oh, yeah, that's on IMDb. And then, so basically, that's the movie I made 3 years ago now. And it's a revenge thriller. As you've seen in the trailer, it can be kind of violent towards the end. But I hope it's an interesting story for you to watch. And other than that, you can check what I did. So my name is, I have 2 YouTube channels. One with my name, which is Cédric Jouarie, and the company is Camera International is my production company. So basically with my name or the company's name, you can find basically YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, all kinds of social media. And if you have any question, like you said, there are ways to write messages there, and I answer everything. So because I don't have that many questions. So there you go. So.
Well, you are welcome to follow me on Facebook, because that's where I'm mostly active. Well, I've been there for more than 10 years. That's Taiwan Reporter. And you can also contact me there with anything. You can leave comments or you can write me a message. If anything following up to this today, if you have any question. Some of you are studying German, I think, or the German schools already left. If you have any special question about Germany, you can just ask me. Yeah, please feel free to do that.
You can answer 2 extra questions there.
Okay. Please do. So that's Taiwan Reporter in one word, Taiwan Reporter, on Facebook and Twitter.
Thanks a lot. So Klaus, Cédric, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you,
Thank you so much for all of you. So that's all. I hope you can go home with something in your mind, in your hearts, that you can apply to your life, because I'm sure that it has been fantastic to listen to you, to have you here. So we hope to meet you again in a row. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you. Zappa.